Hello, and welcome back to Cabincast with Oliver and Jamie.
No.
We are doing part 2 of season 1 of Hilda. So going to continue our discussion of the first series, primarily just the rest of the episodes this time. Hopefully all of them, but it very much does depend how much we end up saying about each episode. We've got 10 to go. So, yeah, we shall see. We shall see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah, so last time we talked about the series in general. We did chapter 1, The Hidden People, chapter 2, The Midnight Giant, which is a part 1 and part 2, and The Bird Parade, chapter 3, which was adapted from Hilda and the Bird Parade, if we didn't say so last time. But from now on, we get into some slightly more original stories. Starting with chapter 4, The Sparrow Scouts, which we talked about briefly last time and alluded to. As kind of how Hilda becomes more at home in the city of Trollberg, and also because her mum was a Sparrow Scout back in her day. What do you remember about this one, Jamie?
Not much. I could have forgot.
That's fair. It was a little while ago, and yeah.
I
Hilda.
was in my head, I was like, yeah, I remember it, and then thought, no, I
Then
don't.
oh. Yeah, so Hilda gets initiated into the Sparrow Scouts, and they receive their first challenge, which is the beautification of Trollberg City Park. To make the park look nicer.
Oh, yeah, I'm starting to
Starting to come back.
remember bits. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's got her new friends, David and Frida now. Who again, if we've not talked about, I and A come up a lot in these names. And D. David, Frida, Hilda. The thing we noticed as we were watching through the series. And yeah, they get to work, because they want to, do well. Removing weeds and cleaning the land. But unfortunately, overnight, plant-like creatures called Vitra ruin their work and call Hilda, Frida, and David out for removing them. Because the Vitra are nature spirits in mythological, in Scandinavian mythology. So that's a fun fact. These ones are very much like plant creatures. They look like plants.
Yeah, they sort of radish shaped.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, at least the one we saw was kind of like a little radish creature. And they're traditionally a type of gnome from northern Sweden, apparently.
Oh, no.
But they're like plant gnomes, I suppose. But again, that's in Scandinavian mythology, in which it makes sense that these guys are kind of based, but they're quite different, I imagine, to have a look in Scandinavian mythology. Yeah, because they live here. They want the trees and the plants and all that stuff to just still be as it is. So yeah. But then the Vitra steals Frida's badge sash. And Frida loves her badges.
Yeah, she's a little obsessed.
She's a little bit obsessed. just a little bit, yeah. So she's pretty upset with this. So Hilda and Frida give chase into the underground tunnels where all the Witcher live. And Hilda manages to stop the Witcher that stole it and agrees to save the Witcher's friends. Because basically what happened is that a whole bunch of the quote unquote weeds that were being moved weren't weeds, they were Vitra who were asleep and didn't notice. Um, and yeah, all the weeds and stuff have been taken to the mulching machine. So unless they stop it, all of those Vitra are gonna be very dead very soon.
And there's like this graphic
Mm.
interpretation of the mulcher, sort of the angles and sounds like it's this
Yep,
horrid creature.
indeed. But luckily, between the kids and the remaining Vitra, they managed to stop the mulching machine and save the Vitra before they are crushed. Um, they didn't get the badge, but they still had fun. Which seems a bit silly though, because like the Sparrow Scouts are supposed to be friends to all nature, the Vitra are all nature. I feel like if you'd explained that, well, we did clear it, but there were a bunch of Vitra stuff, so we had to undo it, then they should have still got the badge. But I guess that's just me. Uh, you know. Um, Also, David was there, and he found a rock. Because he didn't want to go into the tunnels, so he stayed out with Twig. Uh, Outside the tunnels, and he found a rock. And later that night, while he's asleep, it begins to move. Which leads us into the next episode. The Troll Rock. Yeah. Um,
You
the
can
Sparrow
probably
Scouts
see where
one.
this is going.
Yeah. It's kind of like a nice little introduction to Hilda and Frida properly. No, Hilda and Dave. Damn it, Frida and David properly. Uh, and into like the kind of stuff Sparrow Scouts do and a bit more of the like inner city stuff. But it's not one of the standout episodes by any means. Though the Vitra are cool to see,
Yeah,
and it
that's sort
does
of
lead us into the Chorok.
every episode has a purpose, and I believe that episode's purpose was to introduce the troll rock.
Yeah, yeah, gives you a little bit more about we discover Frida loves knowing everything and being an overachiever. David's a bit scared of stuff and is happy to just chill and relax and get a troll rock. Um, so yeah, what happens here is it's like a school teacher parent teacher night. Um, where all the parents come and their teachers tell them about how they're doing and how they're not doing.
You get to see sort of the parents, where you just get an idea of like the personalities.
You do, yeah. And yeah, been years since I had one of these, of course, because been years since I've been in school. But they're the kind of things that for some people were great and for other people were terrifying,
Yes.
depending on how you did and how you acted.
Generally, how you were as a person, and
Hmm.
also what your sort of family expected of you as well.
Also that, yeah.
Because some parents are just, as long as they're behaving and trying their best, they're happy with whatever grades. Whereas there are some parents who they said, "Oh yeah, they're getting C's, even though they're attentive and are trying, they're getting low grades." And like, well, why are you getting low grades?
Hmm.
They sort of expect a lot from.
Exactly. And yeah, David's parents are quite from when we go with the flow, you know, as long as he's, happy, they're happy. They keep it to remove bugs from him, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas Frida's parents, yeah,
Yeah, didn't because there was a bit where they had Frida had to try and distract the teacher,
yeah,
and did it by speak bringing up her think it was her test results to her mum to have a word with
Probably.
the teacher because she got a 99 and she wanted to try and
Yes,
boost those numbers up.
exactly.
Out of
Yeah,
100, by the way.
she's very much an overachiever and a bit obsessed with that, and her parents are definitely supporters of that slash instigators potentially originally, but it's very much our own thing now. Um, and yeah, we get to see some other people as well. Obviously, Joanna, Hilda's mum, is there, and Hilda is a bit of a disruptive influence. Um, not really because she's like always trying to be, but because she's for a start never been to school before, so that's fair.
Yes.
Um, and also just lots of the ways that they solve problems and things is not how she would have done it when she could just be out in nature and all that kind of stuff.
Am I mistaken? Was there a moment which was sort of the typical knows more than what everyone else knows
Mm-hmm.
sort of moment when they say, "Oh yeah, this is this," and she goes, "Oh no, actually that's not the correct." And then the
Yeah,
teacher's like, "You don't talk back to me." Sort of.
yeah. It's like when Aang's at the Fire Nation school. And like, how did they defeat the Airbender army? It's like, the air nomads didn't have an army. What do you want about?
Like
And they're like, "Were you
used to me.
there 100 years ago?" And he's like, "No, I'm sorry, I wasn't here 100 years. It's fine."
If he
Exactly,
was, but he couldn't say he was.
exactly.
Imagine if he responded with yes.
Yes, I was there. I'm the Avatar. I'm gonna take you down.
And the
Hello.
music starts and air everywhere. I mean, well, more than the normal.
Hmm. Um. But yeah, it's an interesting teach and parent confidence thing because they also have like exhibits there that the children have made. Uh, so it's kind of like a show what you've done slash uh parent teacher conference. So Hilda's got some her knitting display.
Oh yes, which can people see them?
Yeah, I I think people can see knittens. I don't think contracts are the
Because the cats don't have
they
a
can't sign
contract.
contracts. Yeah. Uh, um. Yeah, you've got all the classics. Someone's done Potato Power. Um.
Was there a
Someone's
soda volcano? That's
there's a
normally
soda
a
volcano next to it. Yep. And then
it makes
and
me
then
think
David's
of
done rocks.
oh, was it? Oh, Phineas and Ferb, Doctor Doofenshmirtz kept making these inventions, but he always got overlooked and came second to the soda volcano.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And then Portal 2, uh being your daughter to work day, everyone makes potato batteries. And that's why one of the places is completely overgrown with potatoes. Uh but yeah. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
David's done one on rocks. I think it's being your daughter to work day. And that's when GLaDOS is like, you know what? Deadly neurotoxin.
doing Portal 2 co-op and the crow.
Mm. The bird.
Ah, bird, kill it! It's evil.
Uh
Hello.
Funny.
Yes, as you can see, I've been turned into a potato.
Yeah.
It was so good. Actually, no, that wasn't. Was that the? Can't remember if that was the co-op or not. No, I don't think.
She's a potato in the main campaign,
Yeah, but I'm
but the
sure
bird
in the
comes back
co-op.
to haunt her in the
Yeah.
co-op
Oh,
campaign.
look,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
co-op, the Portal 2 co-op was so good.
Mm. It's a lot of fun. But we're not here to talk about that, though. We should add that to the list of things to discuss. Yeah, David's
Portal
got
3
his.
when.
Indeed, indeed. David's got his presentation about rocks and why they're great, including the troll rock. And yeah, his professor was very proud of him, like we were saying. Um, yeah. Oh, also the head teacher person's here, and there's a statue of some
Oh,
troll
he's
hunting
obsessed with
guy,
the statue.
and he's very obsessed with it. Uh, and Alpha's there too, but no one can see him apart from Joanna and Hilda. Um, and then the short teacher starts by doing a short film about the history of the school because people don't know this, or some
Oh
may.
yeah, and they put all the blinds down so the
They
troll
put
rock
all the
thought it was
blinds
night, and
down.
then
Mm-hmm.
it came
And
away.
and Trevor's here, and he's obviously a perfect child when he's at school, and all the teachers love him because that's how it goes sometimes.
Yep, unfortunately.
But yeah, the Trollberg Board of Education and Domestication, okay, presents the Olberg School. Because yeah, it's the Olbergs, 300 years and counting. It's quite well for school to be about. It talks
Hmm.
about how Edmund Olberg founded a school. And it starts, and everyone's getting a bit bored, but then it gets broken, and the rock collection's on the floor, and the teacher's like, "What happened here?" And it's like, "Well, someone threw rock. Looks like someone threw David's rock collection at the camera." And the teacher's immediately like, "Well, it was you, wasn't it, Hilda?" She doesn't directly say that, but she implies it.
Because
Because
Hilda was.
Hilda's standing close to the rocks, and because she has a vendetta against Hilda,
Oh, so I
unfortunately.
wasn't. I wasn't sure if it was because Hilda made a comment earlier on about what was in the video, and they're like, "Well, you obviously don't like what's going on here."
Probably. But yeah, Joanna's like, "Is everything okay?" And the teacher's like, "Actually, can I have a word privately when this is all done?" And she puts all the rocks into a dark cupboard
Oh no.
because yeah, I mean, if it wasn't a,
Well,
a
everything.
troll,
Oh, I
it
guess
wouldn't
I
be an
didn't know it
issue.
was a joke. So, oh, everything went dark the last time and bad things happened. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Uh,
They wouldn't have
Peter
done
and David. David's also got some jorts now, so that's our first introduction to them. Um, I like, can we
that.
can we talk to you, Hilda? Because Hilda apparently hasn't really clocked on that the teacher, Mrs. Hallgrim, doesn't actually love her because she's not the best at following the rules. Which which is fair. But like we said, uh, you know, she just gets confused and things. Like she asks history questions in science class without putting up her hand. Uh, During the troll drills when they're all hiding under desks, Hilda's just like sitting there because she's like, "Trust me, if a troll were here, this wouldn't help you at all." And it's also daylight, so like, why'd there be a troll? And then she also asked the classic question that we all thought but didn't ask about. The real question is why one man needs to buy so many apples, not how much an apple costs. And no one's even in school when she's doing that. Everyone's gone.
So those are the true scholars.
Indeed. But they're like, yeah, that's not how school works. We answer the questions they give us. We don't think of new questions, which isn't really how Hilda works.
No.
Because that's what's much more fun. Um, and yeah, they're like, you've got behavioral difficulty, you're a disruption in class, and David gets roped in And they're like, David, would you say I'm a disruptive influence in class? And he's like, no, I wouldn't say that in class. What if the teacher's talking? I might be disruptive. Um, but yeah, so turns out Hilda's not in quite the good books that she thought she was. But meanwhile, Hilda's mum Joanna is meeting Frida's parents, and she seems a bit awkward and uncomfortable. Uh, and because they lived out in the wilderness, everyone seems to be like, oh, that explains it then. That's the reason. Which is, it's a bit annoying for Joanna.
Yeah,
Uh, which makes sense.
because she just wants the best for Hilda, and everyone's like, just sort of, we just say not like prejudging, but sort of just assuming like, oh yeah, she's gonna be troublesome because she's like she doesn't really know what she's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, if we think about it, Hilda's never been to school before yet.
It's
She's
it's
at
really not surprising. No, it's certainly fair enough.
but where did her mum literally teach her everything
I
before?
guess so. Yeah, yeah.
Which is
I
that in
yeah.
itself is pretty impressive.
Indeed, exactly. So they then figure out that there's a troll in the rock collection, and they try to rope in Alpha to get the rock back. Um, but Mrs. Hallgrim is, hearing the sounds from within the drawer. But obviously, when she opens it, it's dark. I mean, it's light again, so the troll's not there. But then she goes over to speak to Joanna, who's currently speaking with David's parents, who are much more interested and friendly. And yeah, and then that's the part. Um, here, Frida's parents want to ask the teacher for extra maths work to get her score from 99 to 100. So I think then Hilda later is like, okay, as a distraction, I'll sacrifice. Yeah, my having more work in order to to not get you guys in trouble, so that they can finally grab the rock with Alpha's help, which they do. Um, but then it's alive and it's trying to escape. And everyone's like, "What
Right.
you doing, David?" And they're like, "It's dancing. We're dancing." Yes, that is what this is. While David's just being flung around in the background.
Yeah, the baby rock is very strong.
It is very strong. And it escapes and starts running around the place and causing all kinds of havoc. Um,
It
and
literally
Hilda
sort of
eventually manages
breaks
to
through
catch it.
vents.
Oh, and people can't see the Nittons, it doesn't seem. Because the Nitton glass smashes. And yeah, they all see the troll run off. And
And everyone
then
gets itchy because of the nits.
yeah, exactly. Then Hilda has to come across the wonderful lady that is Trevor's mum,
Yeah,
who's
like
apparently so fearful now he won't even go near a bird.
all because of
Which is
Hilda, evil
yeah,
Giles.
indeed. And yeah, everyone else is now itching because of the Nittons, which no one else could see, like you said, so that wasn't even worth it. And the others keep on trying to find uh the troll. They run into the prime minister, who's still a bit mad. And rehearsing his singing and stuff. For his statue dedication. Miss Holgram's running after them. And they keep running, and they keep running, and they keep running. There's more Nittons. They finally end up speaking to the teacher lady, who's like, she's a disruptive influence, and she's bringing Frida and David down with her. I recommend moving Hilda to a small transitional class that can offer more personal attention, which is, again, it's the first time in a school. But Joanna's like, the fact that she dragged her friends into it's a good sign because she didn't have any friends before, so this is good. Um, uh, but then Hilda's pointing out that there's a troll outside, um, to everyone's disruption, and they're like, "Stop interrupting, Hilda! Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" But then the troll attacks, well, the baby troll attacks, and then the big troll shows up to get its baby because that's what parents do. And the troll comes in, and Hilda goes and gives the baby to the troll. When everyone else has been like, "No, don't do that," and then the troll leaves, and it's like, huh.
Like,
Oh, and the troll destroys the statue, which the head teacher's not very.
yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure he walks off with the child and looks and just thinks, huh, I'm offended by that because it's pretty
Yes,
sure it depicts a
it's
troll
it's standing on a troll head,
underneath
I
his
think.
foot.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, again, a bit of a quick resolution because Hilda is now a remarkable child. Um, but again, we just you need to get there. And I guess with her dealing with the troll and everything, it does kind of make her perspective make a bit more sense as to why she's like this, and also that she's not intentionally being menacing and a nuisance. There's usually a good point to what she does.
Yeah, she does things for a reason. She's just trying to help, but she
Exactly.
isn't much. She's sort of a hands-on person rather than a thinker.
Yeah,
She's a doer.
indeed. She is. And so yeah, that's the trial rock. There's quite a lot of like fine details happening in that one, so that one took us quite a bit longer to get through. Um than in the Sparrow Scouts. Uh but next up is the Nightmare Spirit. Do you remember this one?
Yeah, David. David was suffering nightmares, and it ended
He
up
wasn't.
being because of a bunch of witches.
Yeah. Um in a
No, not
nutshell,
witches. Witches are a different thing in
which is a
Hilda.
different thing. They're Mara. Uh
Mara. I
and
wouldn't
those
have
are
remembered
basically
that then.
spirits. They're nightmare spirits. Um oddly enough. Which yeah, malicious entity in Germanic and Slavic folklore that rides on people's chests while they sleep, bringing on nightmares. So like Mara, like mare, like a nightmare,
Um,
that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
Indeed. It actually starts off with them finding the Rat King. Um,
Wait, was that in that
either
episode?
yeah, it's a dream. Um, based on things that David has done with Hilda and Frida. And all the rats attack him, and he's scared because he gets a nightmare.
Mark.
And oh my gosh, I've just realised that David dresses like Charlie Brown.
Yes, he does.
Like, not always the outfit that Charlie Brown has, but when he's wearing the red, he actually looks like Charlie Brown. Huh, interesting. There we
I
go.
wonder if parts of Hilda was inspired by
Hmm.
Charlie Brown.
There's definite similarities, whether they're intentional or just stylistic. Be harder to say. But yeah, David meets the others outside, and they see a teenage girl person, on the other side of the street, uh, just kind of chilling. And Hilda's talking about
Yeah.
how she's really odd. She never sees her with anyone else. She never goes into any shops. And the others just
Doesn't
like, yeah, that makes you
Hilda
both sound
follow
odd.
her and then she just disappears or walks through fences?
Yeah. Yeah. She She does do that later. Yeah, they're just like she's a teenager. Teenagers are just, strange. They're doing Sparrow Scout stuff during the day. Oh, and then they find the Rat King. I guess earlier was just his dream.
Yeah,
About
I
the Rat
remember
King.
the rats in his dream, but I don't remember them encountering the Rat King
Yeah, I
until
may have
sort of
missed those things up.
after. Because doesn't Hilda go?
They
Because
go to the Rat King to ask about David's nightmares.
yeah, I'm trying to remember how they knew about the Rat King.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, Rat King is like it's the teenage girls causing the nightmares. And so they decide to spy on David being asleep uh, at the night. And yeah, David wakes up and they start looking about and there's a flash of light and they see the girl.
And that's what they follow her.
And that is when they follow her, like you said. And she disappears in a puff of green smoke into a keyhole. Uh,
Was that keyhole for the fence?
it's like an offense, yeah. But
Because
then
she was,
David spots her again.
yeah, it was sort of further down the street, or
Yeah, much further away. And they continue to chase her uh, until she heads outside the wall. And they keep going, and they eventually find her out in the forest with a bunch of other Maras, uh, gossiping about like the kind of nightmares that they've given people. And they all look like teenage girls, um, but like kind of young teenage girls, where they've still got like a bunch of spots and stuff. Uh, and also have glowing green eyes because they're spirits. And Hilda confronts them, and they disappear, which makes sense.
so I don't think that actually sorts the nightmares, but Hilda challenges them. Like if I can not wake up in a, if I can survive your nightmare to an extent, then you have to leave David alone.
Mm-hmm. So what they first do is they go to the library,
I was at the introduction to the library.
and we meet the librarian with her black and purple hair, who yeets a book at them. Is like, I think that will be to your interest. And then she zooms away on her moving
Yeah, the ladder.
staircase. Yeah,
Doesn't
just
that do
goes.
like a 90-degree
Yep,
turn on the
it
wall? Just
it does.
like, like it was nothing. Like the G force that should have been.
Yeah. Yeah, they find a book
That's
about
just,
Tales of the Mara.
that's like when you spin
Yeah,
You know the play areas,
a roundabout.
the roundabout thing. Yeah, you spin it and then you grab on, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this will be fine, and you grab onto it, it's like, ah, and then you get flung off because it's so
Yep.
quick. That's the sort of thing
It's
I
a
imagine
mistake.
happened in the ladder.
Uh, and yeah, they find the fact that if you uh strap yourself to your bed with a leather belt, um, the Mara will pass over you. But David is deathly afraid of belts, apparently,
I I don't like belts.
because he's afraid of everything. And
I can't even remember if he gave an explanation as to why
mm-hmm,
he didn't like belts, or he was just like, no, I don't do belts.
indeed.
But I remember
So,
him less than I thought.
mm-hmm. It's been a while ago. So David pretends to be Hilda, and Hilda pretends to be David, and they go into each other's houses, um, to sleep so that she can trick the thing, the Mara. And yeah, the Mara eventually shows up, and it's pretty creepy. Pretty creepy. And then Frida tries to attack her with the belt. Doesn't work. But then Hilda does instead. And they finally do get a chance to talk. And they're trying to they try to tell her to uh stop giving David nightmares, but it doesn't really work. So Hilda goads her into being like, well, David's scared of everything, so it must be really easy. Wouldn't you like a
Yeah, sort of
challenge?
that reverse psychology is like, but there's
Yeah.
no like you take pride in it, but that's so easy. How can you get enjoyment in that? Imagine scaring somebody who's not afraid of anything,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Hilda's like, well, if you can try and scare me, then do that instead. But then it's quite difficult to make yourself fall asleep. So it takes a while. Also, Twig can't sleep because David snores a lot.
I
And
you
so
remember that.
Joanna's like, is Hilda snoring? And I was like, no, it's not Hilda. Why is David here? Um, but eventually Hilda does get to sleep. Um, and wakes up in a dream. And everything around her starts to melt. And then her mother's actually being like, you let the spiders in, and then the spiders everywhere. But that's not.
I can't remember if it was the exact same. It was like, oh Hilda, you let the spiders in.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's they're like, we can use these for the bug collection. Um, so that nightmare didn't work.
Yeah, 'cause it's like a typical. Like, everyone's scared of spiders.
Yep. So then there's a forest giant who we've not met yet, but he's here and he's going to eat Hilda. But Hilda's like, forest giants are known for eating people. Is your life in a rut? Eating people won't fill that void.
And
And
she finally works out Hilda's greatest fear,
mm-hmm.
which was it simply that she couldn't ride a bicycle, or because everyone else could and she didn't like the idea of not fitting in that respect?
It's yeah. The bicycle is just the uh it's just a specific thing used in this circumstance. Yeah, she's worried about that she won't fit in and she won't belong if there's stuff that she can't do. And in this case, that is yeah, riding a bike. So yeah, the Mara finally finds out something that will scare her. Um, and it does work. But then Joanna's shown up now because yeah, David explained everything, and Frida tries to explain. And it's like, no, she's fine. She's just not having nightmares or something. But she doesn't seem quite as fine now. Um, and David's like, no, I can't make her do this. If she can handle them, so can I. I could do it myself. Um, so he wakes her up. And the Mara leaves.
We do see them again later on.
We do see them again. But yeah, Hilda's got to stay close to home for a few days because obviously she did give him a bit of a scare. But David's like, I've had nice dreams. There's not been any issues. The Mara didn't come back. And she, who just happens to be on a tree nearby, was like, well, it's no fun giving someone nightmares if they just ask for them.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a very brave thing to do, so I've got to find someone else. And
The
she asks
episode
them,
end with Hilda sort of saying, "Oh, do you think you guys could teach me how to ride a bike?" Which was really wholesome.
yeah, um, yeah, it's about right away. She doesn't know how things work around here, and she asks the Mara how she knew her secret, and it's because she knows
Yeah.
the Rat King, and she traded secrets with the Rat King, and Hilda traded the secret with the Rat King to find out what was doing it to David. So
So basically, it's like you've given that information to the Rat King, but
yeah,
other people can sort of
can get it from the Rat King. Yeah,
yes.
and then yeah, she asked them to teach her how to ride a bike. And that is that episode, and that leads us on to the Lost Clan,
Oh yes, that's
which is another classic episode where while attempting to gather a sample of a rare plant for the Sparrow Scouts, Hilda and co discover that there are elves inhabiting the area around it. And they kidnap David to punish him for repeatedly walking over them.
that's where they have is it Bertha Bertrude
Yeah, Gertrude,
Gertrude?
maybe.
Is that this warrior elf who's feared amongst? Pretty
Yes.
much all she does is spit and shout.
Yep. We start off with the weather changing very miraculously, and still being predicted by the weather lady. So I wonder if that'll come back again. But
Sorry, that's getting picked up.
a little bit. Um, but yeah, they're going out looking for plants.
And
They
the
find.
only
Hmm.
because they're looking for a specific plant
Yeah.
and they have to go to meet Lindworm,
Yeah,
which is like a dragon.
yeah.
But doesn't oh, what's his name? The tree man,
The Woodman.
woodman. Doesn't the woodman help them get there, or was it
Maybe.
Alpha? Because they get like a road. They get carried over to the island from like a water spirit, which sort of just
Mm-hmm.
pops out the floor
Yeah.
or water.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, so yeah, they want to find a blue nettle because they want to find a much more interesting type of flower. And David's like, I've seen one, but the place is haunted. And Hilda's like, oh, ghosts. Let's see it. And Frida's like, let's just focus on earning the badge. But they persuade her that it'll be an even better badge. So David goes and shows them where the blue nettle is. But yeah, there's lots of voices because there's elves that he can't see. Not a ghost. A whole civilization against the wall, which is the Lost Clan. Um, but they attack, and they have their bunny cavalry, and they have little rocks and things, and they
The
capture
pigeon
David.
riders.
The pigeon riders. Do they have pigeon riders? Oh yes, they have pigeon riders with the Vox. So Frida manages to escape with Hilda, and they get Alpha to help, so they get Frida to fill out the forms and explain that they've lost David, who's been kidnapped. And David seems kind of okay with this.
And for James,
He's
like
just
this is fine, and they're like, he's been a really good prisoner.
yeah, he's got a ladybug on his hair. Um, and in the meantime, Alpha tells them the story of the first elves and how there's one clan, and they ended up being the Lost Clan because there was no elves land and there's borders and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. It was very
Yes.
complicated. Um, and they're like, if Braga signs the contract now, then the feud can be over. But no one's been able to find it. But they're like, nope, we're it's gonna stay this way. We don't want to sign this contract anymore. Contracts are dumb.
The others
Which
took
Alpha,
offense to. It's like,
yeah, Alpha does not understand. It's like, we keep our word. We don't need contracts. And if we don't keep our word, we enter combat.
yeah, they love their combat.
They do. They do love their combat. But they will not sign the contract. It'll only be doing through combat. And Agnes, that's the name. It was Agnes. Um, but yeah, so that's not gonna work. So they have to try and figure out another way to do it. And thankfully, uh, they do. They go back to the library and locate a book which finds them information about a lindworm. Because a lindworm's fire can be used to burn a contract, which can negate it, I believe. Uh, yeah, yeah. The lindworm fire can be used to negate a contract. And they're like, well, the lindworms all left because they're very antisocial. Um, and Alpha actually uses a water spirit horn to find a water spirit. Not the woodman this time. And the water spirits in this are really cool because they're just like water, but water you can stand on.
They sort of bob out. What was it? they sort of bob out and then they just sort of create like a staircase.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool. Though it would be very trippy to actually walk on.
Stand on solid water.
Yeah. So much so that Twigger's like, yeah, nah, I'm good. I
Yeah.
think I'll stay here. Um, but yeah, the others ride the spirit to the island. Whilst in the meantime, David's just talking to Braga about, so have I been kidnapped before? No, it's my first time actually. Yep, ours too. Ours too. Um, David still can't see them either, so it's
Oh no, he can't, can he? Because he's
it's,
been.
yeah,
They haven't untied him so he can sign the contract.
indeed. It's just very funny. And the others in the meantime find the Lindworm. Who's currently asleep, and they try to get it to burn the things, but no. The Lindworm wakes off, and it's like, oh, great. More elves trying to negate a contract, because clearly this has happened before, and elves do it a lot. And the Lindworm is not letting them get away, and it's like a big dragon, serpent, snake creature with fire and anger. Um, And the Lindworm's angry with giving away all of her stuff for free. But luckily, it's it's a it's a gardener.
But well, if you want one of my plants, then you have to trade me something that I don't already have.
Yeah, and luckily, all the kind of common plants like dandelions and purple thistles and stuff, which are all growing close to the city, she hasn't been able to get because she's got too much anxiety to go back close to the city. So they give her those, and she decides to um to burn the contract and not eat them, which Alpha asks for inviting just to be sure. Um, and yeah, and then they destroy it. And they get back to David, whose hair is now tied up. Um, and they're like, he set the bar high for very high for future hostages. Which is quite funny. But yeah, they've destroyed the contract, and it's all good. But they're also like, actually, we don't want to go home. We're still going to stay here, but we can free David now. So David's free. Uh, People have some nice food, and they do some bunny combat jousting stuff, and it's a good time. And they even cheers contracts at the end because
Oh yeah,
contracts are
because
good.
doesn't Alpha what's
Yeah,
they're all doing like for this, for that. It's like two
yes,
contracts, and
contract.
they all silent stare at him,
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh no, what have I done?"
yeah. And the
And then
brother's
the
like,
chief's
the
like, two
contracts.
contracts.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. And final one we're gonna do today, because we have talked about these more than anticipated. We'll end off with chapter 8, Tide Mice. The Tide Mice even. Because the final 5 are a 3-parter and a 2-parter technically. So we've got through 5 today. Hopefully we'll be able to get through that 5 next time. Um, but yeah, the Tide Mice. Do you remember what happens in this one?
Oh, Tide Mice was. They get Tide Mice get stuck in. someone's hair.
That's the season 2 Tide Mice one.
Oh,
Yeah, with the jorts.
oh yeah, the chores. That was a funny episode.
It's a fun one. I am looking forward to us going through season 2 at some point. But this time, what happens is Hilda tries her hand at witchcraft to help David with his singing auditions, and also her
Oh
mum
yeah,
with a
because David's
job.
actually got a really good singing voice, but he can't. He always ends up doing something. Ends up going wrong during his
Yes,
audition.
exactly. So the Sparrow Scouts are doing a musical because Sparrow Scouts just seem to do everything basically. Um, and David can sing really well, but manages to just somehow completely destroy the stage, um, and everything whenever he does anything, and it's very unfortunate. When he's trying out for the warblers, yeah, which is like the singing birds warble, all that kind of stuff. And Frida's really supportive actually. She's like, you and Hilda can both sing, you should definitely try out. I do percussion because I can't, but you should do it. But David's still very nervous. And again, the Sparrow Scouts works in a weird way where it's just like, just let him knock up on the stage and sing from literally anywhere else, and you'll see he's got a good voice.
But yes, they go on the stage.
Indeed, he does. Uh, and he shows off his singing a bit, because Hilda's not heard him sing before, and she is very, very impressed. And he's like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And he tries, and he manages to get a leaf or a bug in his throat or something,
Starts
and yeah,
choking,
starts
knocks
choking.
everything over, the usual.
And yeah, it still doesn't work out. But apparently there's 3 more days of auditions, so there must be an awful lot of Sparrow Scouts, or it's just open for a long time, I guess.
I guess because not everyone can do auditions on the same day, maybe.
Yeah, indeed, something like that. So like, we can try again, David. Um, and yeah, she goes home. Uh, and Twig's very happy to see her because no one's here because there's not a lot of graphic design work going on at the moment. So Mum's had to take on a job at the local kind of convenience store. Where she is doing her best, but she's a bit overworked. It's very busy. Um, so yeah, she's got a lot to do, and
Most for retail.
yeah, the customers are not the most pleasant ones in this store.
Like, I've
She's
just turned up and the shelf's empty. Because, God, is it. What does he have to do to get the staff around? And it's just like, God's sake.
Yep, yeah, yeah. We moaned about retail enough when we actually did our episode reactions. So
Oh, yeah, I think we did.
um,
You.
yeah. But yeah, they go to the library and they're just going to do some reading when Twig notices that there's a secret door, yeah, a secret bookshelf that opens to a secret place. And so they investigate into the secret bookshelf. And there's a lot more books behind it of a much more magical nature, which is, a further allusion to there being more going on in the library than meets the eye, uh, which is pretty cool. And Hilda finds a book that she can use to help both David and her mum, which is the Tide Mice, which she can basically use uh, to help them out.
She doesn't read the small print, I don't think.
But she doesn't read the small print, no. And also the librarian finds her. She's like, "How did you find this room?" And she's like, "Oh, we walked in." And she's like, "Well, these aren't for recirculation. Leave them here, and leave the reshelving to me." But Hilda's like, well, I just need this one page, so I'm gonna do it anyway. Which is famous last words. And she does go and photocopy the page and steals David's hair in like the middle of class. But which fair enough. And yeah, she follows through all the steps without telling anyone about them. And then there's tide mice made of people's hair.
Are they made of people's hair, or are they just made to attract them?
They are made of people's hair.
Well, they are made of people's
The
hair.
hair, it seems at the very least, the hair becomes the mouse, kind of. And so now, yeah, the tide mice is in David's hair. And David's audition goes really well.
And he gets the lead role.
And he gets in because they're like, wow, David, you can sing. And it's like, yes. If you had just listened to him sing at any point and not been like, no, you can't do it because you've choked or because you've destroyed the stage, you would have known that too. This isn't surprising. But there we are again. And yeah, Mum got back from work early so that they can play Dragon Panic, which is a game they haven't played since they were back in the old house. And she made them a new scorecard with some doodles because she can't help doodling because she likes her graphic design and her drawing and stuff. And they have like a really nice afternoon. Oh, and she's at a hardware store, not a general store, but still. But yeah, they're having a good time. Oh no, my bad. She hasn't done her Tide Mouse yet. She just managed to get off work early, and that was nice. But then she does make a Tide Mouse for her mum as well, which is like the really cool pattern on it from the doodles.
Oh yes.
Because yeah, mum's at the hardware store, but she wants to be doing graphic design really, but there's not a whole lot of work. But
And
now
she
all of a
gets this
sudden
massive, and then she gets a massive
she does.
role. She's like, isn't it like the new Bell
Yeah,
posters?
I think it's the Trollberg Bellmakers Corporation for their citywide ad campaign. So she was only on the only at the hardware store for like a week or two, I think, at most. Yeah, going well, basically. For now, and then there's these bells everywhere. So they're doing a whole new line of personal bells. And yeah, Hilda and David sing in the thing. Everything's going great. Get another cool montage. We've not talked about too much, but the music and then like the used songs in the show are also really wholesome and good.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
music is fantastic.
it's really lovely. And then Hilda's like, Frida shows up and is like, can you explain what's going on with David? And Hilda's like, what? He's doing great. And she's like, no, he does this creepy eye thing occasionally, uh, and makes bizarre noises. Um, what's up with that? Also, steam was rising from his head. That seems concerning. Do you have any idea what could be going on? And Hilda's like, well, those are Alpha's like, those are all enchantment things. To which Hilda's finally like, well, I maybe enchanted him, but it was only from a library book. It's not dangerous. It's fine. And then Hilda's like, well, I only copied the page I needed, and I didn't read it too closely. And so yeah,
Like, Alf,
she
like
didn't
you
follow
didn't
up on the
read the small
footnote.
print.
Yeah, they didn't follow up on the footnote. And so
Oh,
they're
yes.
like, we need to check this immediately, and they run back to the library, go back to the secret room, and they check the footnote, which they really should have checked.
Because
because
what it
who would
turns out
say anything
is,
important with the footnote? It turns out that side effects include blanked out eyes, occasional growling, uh, or a fine mist rising from the enchanted scope. Typical signs that the soul is preparing to be forfeited to the enchanter for all eternity. So Hilda was accidentally keep your friends forever by stealing their souls. Luckily there's some kind of 30-day trial period. But that is almost up. Very almost. And there's an asterisk which is like see appendix for instructions. It's just like see footnote to see asterisks to see appendix. Um it is a bit all over the place, but luckily Alpha is all in for this. Uh and they managed to figure it out. Um at the concert that evening. And yeah, they come to the finale with the Warblers doing their song. And luckily Joanna's there, though she is also doing the the eye blank growling thing. And then the song begins. And this is when the absolutely hilarious moment was, wasn't it? Oh, what was it?
I don't. I think that was the last one of season 1.
I swear something happens with David. Because they sing their song, but then David gets his like solo, and it's like all like 80s rock ballad thing.
And doesn't it just sort of go really well?
It does. But then Hilda has to shout the spell. That's what it was.
Oh yeah.
She says she just starts shouting out this nonsense at the very end of David's song. It's just like, what, what, what was this? And I mean, eventually people start clapping, but then they see the mouse on David's head, and the mouse runs away, and it gets on everyone else's head, and then they
And
see
then
the
they
mouse on
start.
Joanna's head.
And then they start like spewing out. No, does Hilda start like glowing green? No.
Yeah, they grab both the mice. But yeah, no, she starts stealing their souls more. It's the final stages as they're driving back to the beach because they need to do on the beach. And yeah, and yes, they have to drive back though. It's going very badly wrong because Mum's driving and also being possessed.
Yeah. So occasionally it'd just be like, it's okay, everything's going to be fine. Someone just and then starts driving off.
Yeah. So luckily they managed to get there, though Hilda does have to kind of take the has to what am I trying to say? Take the wheel at the last moments to stop it. And David's a bit like nervous about everything, but luckily Joanna's there and they get through it together. A big old blue beam to space happens, and the souls are all returned. Thank goodness, because that'd have been a bit awkward otherwise. And everything is back to normal. Uh,
When is it the librarian finds out about Hilda?
I think the second season.
Was it that long?
I think. Because yeah, mum's like, I know you're trying to do good, but you need to be more careful. Please read the footnotes next time. And yeah, and that's the end of it. They think, but it's not. The mice still go back into a pack with her because they didn't do a step properly or something. And there they shall remain until like the end of season 2, when they come back in a big way. But again, we're not there just yet. And that was the Tide Mice. So next time we have the Ghost, which starts off the 3-part series of episodes of Frida kind of sucking a bit.
Oh yeah, that one.
And also Hilda getting lost. But it's mainly about Frida kind of sucking a bit. In fact, that kind of continues on for up until the next 2-parter for the finale. But anyway, yeah, we'll come back to that next time, where we'll hopefully round out this first season. Any final thoughts on the Tide Mice or any of the episodes we've covered today, Jamie?
No, not in particular.
Okay. In which case, we will leave this episode of Cabincast here. This is stretching Cabincast to a bit more of a Cabincast rambles than me and Tan do. But it's necessary to get through these episodes because there's sometimes quite a bit to talk about. So yeah. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cabincast. For more episodes, go to www.cabincast.podbean.com or use the Podbean app. You can now also find us on iTunes and Pocket Casts under Cabincast and on YouTube. There are uploads here on my behind. Finally, you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Cabincast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.